So, a little bit of background, right? So, recently the Supreme Court decided, well, they didn't decide yet, but they leaked a memo stating that they are going to overturn Roe v. Wade and send it back to the states. Roe v. Wade was a decision that was decided in 1973, which made abortion legal across all 50 states. Prior to that, abortion was legal in some states. It was restricted. It was allowed with some restrictions in other states, and other states it was outlawed altogether. So just a little bit of background, because most people are not really familiar with the Roe versus Wade case. It was a case that was brought forth in Texas. I believe the plaintiff's name was Norma. Let me make sure I have her name right. Norma McCorvey is what I believe her name was, and to protect the individual, they changed her name to Jane Roe. So Norma McCorvey, she was a 22-year-old who was on her third pregnancy. Her first pregnancy, she gave up the child. She gave up the rights to the child to a mother to raise. When she got pregnant again, she put that second child up for adoption. And when she got pregnant for the third time at age 22, she was an unwed mother. She decided to challenge it in the courts. So at the time, you had a number of abortion rights activists that were looking for a solid test case, and this was a solid test case. I know her last name is McCorvey. I'm trying to make sure I have her first name correct, but she took it to court, but she never ended up having an abortion. She ended up having the third child and putting it up for adoption. Nevertheless, the case went forth all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made a decision that abortion rights would be allowed all across the country. And the way the decision was made is what has caused a lot of controversy going 50 years later. When the Supreme Court made the decision, they used the 14th Amendment as justification for allowing abortion. And for those of you who are familiar with the 14th Amendment was created for descendants of African slaves. It was to provide protection and citizenship. So the 14th Amendment grants everyone who is born here citizenship and allows them due process. And it's that due process clause that the abortion rights activists were using to say that it expanded the notion of privacy, even though there is no notion of privacy in the Constitution. So that's what's been the back and forth. The Supreme Court believes that the abortion case is not, the Supreme Court shouldn't have jurisdiction over abortion, because the Supreme Court is not supposed to make laws. The Supreme Court interprets laws. They don't legislate. They can't investigate. They can't. They just don't have enough. The right word. They don't have oversight. They can't oversight, because that's not what their job is. That job is to go to the states. So it looks like that's where we're headed now. Before I get into today's broader topic, which is how this back and forth or how this decision, we believe this decision, if it will have any fallout or ramifications or expand a gender war that seems to be going on right now. You know what? I don't even want to ask you what you guys think about it, because that's kind of personal about what you feel about abortion, and I don't want to put anybody out there like that. So let's focus on on what you feel like. What do you think the implications of this decision? Do you think it will reignite a gender war? Go ahead and put this. Do you think the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade will have an impact on gender relations? Tamantha, I'll start with you.
I absolutely do believe it will create a gender issue as far as the relations and everything. Because as a woman, women would have an issue with, I guess, someone trying to tell them exactly what to do with their bodies. Especially those that, are feminists. And so that's a hard topic. There's just a lot of controversy, in my opinion, behind that. Regarding, it's a person's body. And so, I'll just leave it at that without saying my opinion, I suppose.
Right. I don't want to, unless you want to, you don't have to put your opinion about the actual abortion. This is just, the focus is the impact between the two genders. So we'll keep it there. Rick, go ahead. Tell me what you think. What?
I think it's cut and dry. If they're not supposed to rule if they're not supposed to be really involved in those decisions, then I can understand why they should say, let's right or wrong from that perspective. I'm not saying that women shouldn't have the right to get abortions or whatever, but if that's not a ruling for the Supreme Court, then it's cut and dry. Now we can talk about the other issues. I'd love to talk about the other issues, but
we're going to get into it.
Right.
We're going to get into it, but I mean, just for right now, what do you think the impact? Do you think it's going to make things a little bit spicier between women thinking that?
I think the misunderstanding will make it spicier between men and women, because I think that a lot of people think that if they overturn this, then all of a sudden they can't get abortions. But that's not what's on the table. So I think that will cause confusion and division.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Hanefah, what do you think? Do you think the lack of knowledge regarding what the Supreme Court is doing? The Supreme Court is not saying that abortions are going to be illegal. They're just saying that it shouldn't be in their jurisdiction. Do you think that I don't even want to say ignorance, but do you think the lack of knowledge about what the implications of this are will cause conflict between genders? Because I've seen some protests, and people are saying that hands off my body, and men are trying to dictate to women what they should do with their body.
Yeah, I was gonna say that yes, it's definitely going to broaden the gap that's already happening between men and women. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're frozen just a little bit. But okay, there you go. Yeah, there you go. You're there.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. I think that.
Oh
no. Yeah.
Predominantly men, particularly white men. Let me just be clear on that. That it's. I'm not saying that there are no women involved in the decision making, but the ignorance around the decision and what that means, it don't necessarily mean in the hands of the states. More than likely, it's definitely going to broaden the gap that's already happening between men and women, or
Yeah, I think we're losing you a bit. You're frozen.
Yeah, we need.
Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to you, Hanefah. Marlon, go ahead and tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult situation between genders because women are already protesting about men can't tell them what to do with their bodies or anything of that nature. But yes, it's going to cause a lot of conflict, I believe. I understand the Supreme Court position as far as they're not able to make a decision, and it has to go back to the states. So it's pros and cons and all that, but yeah, it's going to cause an uproar.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I will say this: in some states, I think women are correct. In some states, say in the Bible Belt, like Mississippi, Texas, Oklahoma, those areas, it's probably a given that they're gonna make abortion illegal. But it doesn't mean that abortion will be illegal in all 50 states. Okay, so and Rick, I know you'll probably be excited to go into this one now. So when it comes,
I'm always excited.
So when it comes to the gender war, and most of us are we've been around since the 70s. We know that the gender war hasn't really gone anywhere. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it was in the 60s or 70s, but it's still here, as some of us have seen with the celebration, with some women celebrating the passing of Kevin Samuels. You can still see that there is a rift or a gulf between men and women. The question I want to pose to the panel is about reproductive rights. And I know that, you have women's movements and the feminist movement. They say they want to fight for gender equality. But when you look at the things they fight for and you look at the outcome, there doesn't seem to be gender equality. It seems like with every change, it only favors women, and men don't really get an equal shot, whether it's in family courts, child support, just to name a few things. So abortion is one of them. We know that the women do not want the government to intervene and tell them what they can do with their body. But once they have a child, these same women appeal to the government to force the man who may not have wanted the child to pay child support. So, Hanefah, I'm going to begin with you. Do you feel that reproductive rights are biased in favor of women?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
But you're frozen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You moved me a little bit.
Yeah, you're frozen. Okay,
Maybe a little bit too far away from our internet.
Right. Okay. Okay. So.
Okay, I'm gonna switch computer.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay. No worries. Okay. So Tamanda, let me tell you, the format of the show is to always get, to be fair, but women always get the first crack at it. So I always start with women first. And so
ladies first.
Yeah. So I normally alternate, but since Hanefah has to go and change equipment, you'll have to go again for the second
She's
time.
3 times a lady. Hey, she's 3 times a lady. It's all good. And
It's fine. You might have to repeat the
Okay.
exact question. You said,
yeah.
so how do I view the
Right.
men, reproductive rights when it comes to men and bias. Okay, so I do believe, I guess, if you think about it in a fair way, that yeah, there would be a bias. When it comes to, I guess, a man that wouldn't want to necessarily be a father, honestly, I mean, I would have to default to sometimes those things that you thought about before you take the act that created the baby. However,
I knew it.
Let her have it.
Yeah.
however, I do have three sons. Yeah, because I do have three sons, and if they were placed in that position and they weren't ready for it, and whether it's financially, maturity wise, whatever, I probably would have a little conflict as the mother of that child, that son, being forced into a situation he really doesn't want to be a part of. And so yeah, I do, to answer the question, think that it is a little biased towards us women regarding being able to go to court and force someone to be financially responsible for 18 years or whatever it may be, depending on the child and the situation. I don't know. I'm kind of straddling the fence, but
Okay.
when looking at it from that perspective of being a mother of three kids, I don't know how I would feel about being in that position as a grandmother. Because I actually did think about that earlier. Like, you know, I want my kids to be stable and in a place that they can take care of their kid. I've told them and brought them up to be able to make the wisest decision, but sometimes things happen.
Right. So then, if you didn't have three boys, chances are your answer would be different, correct? That's what because you're on the fence, and it seems like the only reason why you can kind of see without point is because you have three boys and you wouldn't want them to be in that position.
You might be right about that. If I had to do it, I might feel different.
No. Okay. And Marlon, I know you were chomping at the bit to get in there, so I want to go ahead and let you go ahead and let you can respond to what Samantha has said, or I'm pretty sure I can guess what your position.
I understand what she's saying, but as a man, we really don't have no decision in it anyway. You know, it's really all up to the woman, because if you want the woman to have a child and they decide they don't want to have it, you out of luck. If you don't want the woman to have a child and they decide they want to have it, what recourse do you have? You're not going to go and take the woman to court and say, you're going to have my baby or whatever like that. I mean, there's a lot of variations in that. But I think we as men, we don't have a decision in it. You know, it's like we can have a suggestion, but it's always up to the woman. And whether we like it or not, we're going to have to eat that oatmeal regardless.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, we don't have no decision, you know, so it's not fair. It's not fair. And I've been in that situation before, and it's not fun. Now, of course, everybody said, well, you know what you should have did before then. But the thing about it is that I felt like I was being trapped. I was being victimized. But people don't look at the man as being victimized. But I was being victimized because I was a little younger and she was a little older. And we had a situation, and she already had two other kids. This was my first time. Well, not my first time, but my first child. And I just felt it was unfair, but the ultimate goal was to get me, you know, along with the child. So, you know, we can go on and on all day about that. You know, you just like you hear about basketball players or famous people get trapped by women, you know, whatever. But the bottom line is, when a decision is made, it's not really up to the man, it's up to that woman.
Right.
And we really don't have no leverage in that. It's just up to the woman. We only can make suggestions.
Right. Rick, I know you want to chime in. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So let's go back to what he just said about you know, the decision being up to the woman, and then go back to Samantha saying, well, you know, ultimately, you know, you need to make a better decision. Basically saying you need to make a better decision in the beginning. I think that it's really, really difficult to go about life without making a mistake. And that's kind of the pressure that's put on a man. Like, if you never fell down a flight of stairs before, if you never took a wrong turn, if you never believed someone who said, hey, if you could just loan me this, I'll pay you back next week. If you've never been in that position, then you don't know what it's like to be a man in regards to like reproductive rights. It's like you have to, you put a man in a position to say, I basically can never trust a woman. I can never trust a woman, because even if you wanted to have a child, you know, I'm 50. So I'm using me as an example because I can use me as an example all night long. Since I was like 16, I've been this height. I was 6'1", light-skinned guy with wavy head, with waves. Women would walk up to me and just say, oh, I like your waves. I want to have your baby. And I'd be like, that's ridiculous. You know, like, you don't even know me. You want to have my baby. You don't know nothing about me, whatever. And they say, oh, it'll be fine. We can have kids. We could have nice kids together, right? They make all of these promises. And I think that, like, in general, a lot of women say all kinds of stuff that they are not ever asked to be accountable for. And so, and if you can fast forward all the way to recently, I'm going to put myself out there again. I was made a boatload of promises. And I did something that I was 48 with no children, 49 before a child. That is not by accident. I made very conscious decisions not to make babies all over the place or anywhere that wasn't going to be in the house with me. And someone came to me and they presented something during the pandemic where they promised, hey, I can't have children. I wouldn't do that to you. I promised. And they said, you can trust me. And I thought, no way this lady's going to be whatever. And she even showed me a piece of paper that kind of indicated that she couldn't have children. And I did possibly the dumbest thing I ever did in my 49 years. I believed her. And in that moment, I wrote out what was going to be for the next 20 years of my life. And I'm 50. You know what I mean? I don't want to go through that at 50.
Right.
I'm a 50-year-old first-time dad because I believe someone. And there's no out for me in that. And then I don't even know if I want to be out. Like, the kid is here. I like the kid. I just don't like the situation. Right? And then I don't like the position that he's in because he's got a 50-year-old father now. I don't think that's fair. He's brand new. He got a dude that's, you know, 50 years old. That's kind of not fair. But that's the thing for us. You know, we don't have a say. And when you say my body, my choice, that's fine. But guess what? It's my body, my choice too. So now you're gonna have this baby, and then I don't have anything I don't have to deal with it. I can just, because if I have to sacrifice my body in order to pay for that child, I have to sacrifice my body if I'm gonna be in that child's life and I'm gonna stay up all night while he's crying. That's my body. You know, that's my body. You don't just go and get a paycheck and then hand it over. It's not like that. I have to work for that paycheck. And I was looking at early retirement. I was like, "Pooh, I'm good. I'm 50. I can quit. I'm chilling." And now I got to look forward to the days of my back hurting again.
Yeah.
I got a 1-year-old son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
No, I mean, but when it comes to men, when you talk about fairness, you're derided as being a crybaby. You need to suck it up and you need to man up. And I think that's part of the problem is that it's things are so one-sided. Like as men, from the time we're young boys, we're taught to be patient with girls. We're taught to be mindful of their feelings, to care about them, but they're not taught the same. They're taught to focus on themselves, make themselves better. So when we express to women some of our frustrations, a lot of times it falls on deaf ears. Now, I want to touch on something you said as far as lying about not being able to conceive or being on birth control, because that is something that's a pretty big phenomenon that happens with a lot of guys. In some cases, you have women who actually steal condoms out of trash cans and insert that in themselves, which is the reason why what was it, a few months ago, Drake had put hot sauce in his condom and his used condom. Find out the woman
almost got sued.
Yeah, the woman dug in the trash can to take a used condom and insert it in herself, and then her body was on fire on the inside, and she tried to sue Drake for $20 million. Now,
really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that happened.
And it was viewed as valid, and they were, trying to pursue it.
Right.
On what grounds?
So what now?
That he intentionally caused like bodily harm to her.
But the notion that they would even try to bring that in court is beyond laughable to me. And like you said, Rick, it's called, Spurgling, right? Or sperm burglary. So it's called a Spurgling. There is a terminology for it. And so you have a situation where a lot of men get splurgered, or I don't know if that's the way to say it, but a lot of women engage in splurging.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard word to say because it's
Burglar.
Yeah, Spurgling. Yeah, these Spurgling like hamburglar, but sperm burglar, right? and so, but it's not illegal. It's wrong, but it's not illegal. However, if a man has sex with a woman and he puts a hole in the condom, or he takes the condom off, it is illegal in most states around the country. It's called stealthing. It's illegal. A man will go to jail for it. Here you have the two of the same things, stealthing, spurgling, but for women, they don't get in trouble, and they can still go after you for child support. Now, Samantha, being that you have boys, how does it make you feel hearing that?
I mean, I'm aware of that phenomenon. I've read about that like when I was in my 20s. I'm 45 now. Mm-hmm. I think I saw it with the NBA player or something like that. And there was at that point that it became something in the media. People were doing it for a long while, like probably before I was even on Earth. And so I probably only had one son at that point, and just the human being that I am, I was like pretty much like livid. Like, how could somebody do that? Because as y'all said, yes, there are women out here that will trap men into a situation. And so when I was giving my point of view before that, I wasn't talking about situations where like people are blatantly trapping men. Like, it just happens. It happens every day. It happens more times than we probably can imagine every day. And so in those situations, I absolutely believe, yeah, you need to take that to court. It might be something that may get thrown out or whatever, but hey, you never know. I'm willing to put money on, and I'm not a gambler, that somewhere out there, someone has won a case in that situation with the splurgery. And I think because that NBA person that I read about did win that case. And two, they may have won the case in regards to, I didn't consent to this, so no, I'm not paying child support for this child, because that, yeah, we may have had the act, but I didn't consent to you going back and they have the proof or some type of evidence that something went down. And so like Rick was saying, this person went so far to even show you documents. Like, honestly, I would be like, if I was very passionate about the fact that I got tricked into the situation, I would sue. I would take it to court.
Okay, so what do I have to gain now? Like, am I looking for freedom from the child? Because that at this point is not, now I know the kid, so I don't want like freedom from him, but it's just it still just forces me to deal with a very unfair situation. And then on top of that, she still has the bulk of the leverage when it comes to the say for the child. And a lot of people will say, well, that's not the case. You can go to court and she ain't got to sue to have the say. I got to take her to court to have a fair say. And I still most likely won't have a fair say in what goes on with my child forever. I'll still never have a fair say unless I prove her completely incompetent, which is something that women don't have to do with her. They just have to be the mother. I have to prove her like completely incompetent to have the prevailing voice in my life.
Hold on, Rick. Hanefah, I see you. I'm trying to bring you back up. Go ahead, Rick.
I don't think she's connected yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Audio. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's true, because I remember when I was thinking about trying to get custody of my son, the lawyer told me I would have to prove that she was totally incompetent, on drugs, or totally, and then they even still get a second chance of of obtaining them, being able to keep them. I mean, at that time, I don't know. I've been hearing about things now about fathers getting their child now, but I know when I tried, it was like impossible unless she was just totally bat crazy.
Yeah.
And I was going to speak to that because I'm an educator. So I have seen on many occasions that fathers have and are recently still getting custody of their kids. And it hasn't necessarily been that the mother has been totally incompetent. It's just been certain situations, or he may be better off. And then too, depending on the age of the kid, because at some point, a child is going to be able to speak for themselves and be able to tell the court if they really want to be with that parent or if they want to be with the other. And so they've been giving kids that I've dealt with the option of choosing.
But that's at a certain age, I believe.
But that's what I said. It's at a certain age, of course, yes.
Well, even if it wasn't that, you see instances where that happens, but that's like comparing a tightrope to a safety net. Mm-hmm. It's like the men on some people can cross that tightrope.
Yeah,
women can pretty much jump out the window. Man, there's a safety net down there, and it's a big difference. And trying to make it across the tightrope. Some people make it.
And then also,
hold on a second. I want to bring Hanefah in.
Okay, go ahead.
But before I bring Hanefah in, I want to ask Samantha: Do you recall the name of that NBA player? Because I know getting out of paying child support is that's a very tough task. Because if you remember, there was a teacher in Washington State. I think her name was Mary Kate Letourneau, is what I believe her name was. And she was messing with like a 12 or 13-year-old Samoan boy named Billy. And so she got pregnant by Billy, and she was told not to stay away from him. She did her 6 months, told to stay away from him. And she went back and had another kid from him. And the moment Billy turned 18, he was already, he was put on child support. And this was a situation where she molested him. She molested a child. And he couldn't get out of that. So I'm surprised to know that I'm surprised to hear about an NBA player being able to get out of that. That's something, child support is something that's very difficult to get out of. Hanefah, let me see. I think she stepped away.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah. We can hear you.
Okay, so I'm about to turn my camera on shortly. Just give me 1 second, but I'm in a better space now.
Okay,
I
okay,
was too far away. So
okay,
just give me
okay.
1 second. Go ahead.
Okay, no worries. Yeah. So, do you, Samantha, can you recall the name of that professional ball player or?
No, as I said, that when I read that, I was living in Alabama. That was the early 2000s. That's how long ago it was.
Okay. Okay. Well, Marlon, man, I didn't mean to jump
no,
in.
you're fine.
Okay. Well,
But I was going to add this. Also, if a woman, if she already knows that the father is not the father, and the father happens to find out he's not the father, the father's still liable if they sign their birth certificate too. And even if you know that this child is not yours, and let's say the father wants to sue the woman for lying to him purposely or whatever, there's no recourse behind that either. The judge like, hey, you've been feeding the child, you have to take care of it. So once again, we get no recourse.
I'm gonna remind me because I want to tell you a story about that birth certificate. But before we go on to that, Hanefah, I know you stepped away for a little bit, and so what we've been talking about is our reproductive rights biased in favor of women. I don't know how much you were able to hear because I know you're in the process of changing equipment. I don't know if you need any background, but I'm pretty sure you have an opinion on this.
I was listening.
Okay.
I was listening.
Okay, perfect.
No, when I was trying to respond, I was saying that if it's biased, it's absolutely biased. Women can say my body, my choice. Men cannot say my sperm, my choice. Right. And the argument is, well, she has to carry it, but it's absolutely biased. It's as biased as family court. I mean, right.
Yeah.
Anyone that denies that biasness is blind. Everyone can see it, even the children. So there's a major biasness that's there. I think that a lot of the laws, a lot of the things that are on the book are very antiquated, and they really just need to be, some of them just need to be tossed out completely, or it needs to be revamped somehow. But I don't necessarily think that men are going to get these things changed without our backing, without our participation as women. And so I think that a lot of the things that are on the books stay the way it is because women are benefiting from them.
Right.
Because if we weren't, there would be major uprisings, not uprisings, but protests against certain things, to get certain laws and so forth on the book change. If the courts or reproduction rights, if these things being antiquated affected women directly, they would have been changed a long time ago. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yes, there is a major biasness, but the only way for that to be changed and there be some sort of equilibrium there, it has to be both men and women fighting for it. Not necessarily, well, both men and women fighting for it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Right. And because we want to restore balance and fairness, it has to come from that place.
Well, if a lot of these women's groups, like the Feminist and National Organization of Women, were really about gender equality, they would be out there side by side fighting to make these laws equal, but they're not. So it's hard for most men to come away believing that these feminist groups, or women's group, are really about gender equality, but more about more female control and female power. Because when it comes to abortion, women have all the power, right? You have unilateral decision making, right? If the man wants to have a child with this woman, and she does not want to have a child with that man, or she doesn't feel like she's financially or mentally ready, then she can terminate the pregnancy. However, if the man is not mentally or financially ready, or he simply doesn't want to have a child with her, then there's nothing he can do about it, because she will have the baby. And then what ends up happening is the man is so angry that he doesn't want to have anything to do with her. And he just gives her support. And then now you have this innocent child who grows up without the love and affection from a father. And God help us all if it's a daughter, because we know how devastating it can be when little girls grow up without a father in their life. It affects their confidence. It affects a number of things. I mean, they feel a sense of rejection. Their sense of self-worth goes down. A lot of them can become promiscuous early on. I mean, there are plenty of studies that back up these things that I'm saying. So, so all in all, I do agree with you that if the shoe were on the other foot and it was impacting women the way it's impacting men, they would be screaming to high heavens. Marlon, before I go to this video, I want to share a little anecdote. Now, this was told to me third person, so not directly from the individual that it happened to. So there was a guy who, he was married. He had his kids, and he was gone for a while. He went to work. He was overseas, and his wife was begging and urging him to come home. He wanted to come home, and he's like, damn. He's like, man, why is she pressed for me to come home? So she's like, oh, I'm missing you. I'm missing you. I'm loving you. So anyway, she kept pressing him until he finally came home. She put it on him every day of the week, 2 weeks straight. Next thing you know, 7 months later, they have a baby. Mm-hmm. And, he signs it, he signs the birth certificate, but he's still confused because the timing just doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And so he's looking at the way that this baby cries. Everything about this baby just doesn't feel right. He has this sense that it's not my kid. Mm-hmm. So I guess he does like one of these little knockoff tests, and it says that it's not his kid. And he's crying, he's devastated, but he's told not to say anything to the wife, not to get an official one. So he goes to the hospital to get an official test. Turns out, like Maury Povich, you are not the father. So he's devastated. And he confronts her saying that this is not my kid, and she swears up and down. She's like, I don't care what that thing says, you are the father. But this was in Maryland. Once you sign that birth certificate, you're on the hook financially. It doesn't matter if the woman engaged in paternal fraud. You are on the hook for 18 years of that kid's life. So
it's a contract.
Yeah,
it's a contract.
It is. And so that's one of the reasons why I think that it should be a law that there should be a paternity test done for every child born in a hospital. No man should sign a birth certificate thinking that it's his child if it isn't. And then this is not like this was a girlfriend or somebody. This was his wife, and he's on the hook for 18 years. So it's unfortunate, but there are a lot of stories out there like that. Okay, yeah, sorry, Hanefah, I hit the wrong button, so you weren't visible on the screen. So I'm going to start with you, since Tamantha has gone first several times. What do you think the reaction would be if a law was passed saying that if a man does not want the child and the woman goes ahead and has a child, the man can waive his parental right as well as his financial obligation? What do you think the reaction would be to something like that? And do you think that's fair?
I've had this conversation, right? And I know I'm probably on the wrong side of this when I say this as a woman.
Right or wrong?
Me personally, I feel like, because let's be honest, as much as we don't like it, people are having casual sex. Okay? We are beyond whether that is right or wrong at this point. It's happening. Okay? And people are also having unprotected sex. I think that there are a lot of babies that are the results of those hookups. of people that may have known each other only for 30 days. And then here comes a baby, and so there's a lot of situations where that happens. I do think if there's a conversation where a woman comes and says very early on, I'm pregnant, it's a tricky one, because a part of me, to be honest, Abe, I want to say, well, you guys weren't really in a relationship. This guy is like, I wasn't really looking for a child. But then there's that other side of me that says she now has to carry this and you could just walk away. And yet both of you guys were irresponsible. So it's really tough for me, because I haven't landed on this as yet. But I could see where there's something in me that says it's not right when a guy says, I didn't intend to have a child with you. Maybe the rubbers, I don't know, burst, whatever they call it, it didn't work out that way. Maybe she said she wanted a pill, he trusted her, whatever that is. A part of me feel like if a guy doesn't want it, it's unfair to force him to be responsible for the child. A part of me feels that way, but then the other side of me is like, now she's stuck with this child who is about to be fatherless. She has to carry this through full term all by herself. And I feel like that's unfair, because there was also another irresponsible party involved. So I haven't landed my plane on this yet. So I can't tell you which one I'm really concrete on. I'm sort of torn. I'm conflicted between the two thought processes, honestly.
Right. Marlon, your thoughts?
What was the question again?
The question was, what do you think the outcome would be if a man did not want to have a child, and the woman went ahead and had the child anyway? If the man could legally waive his parental rights and therefore his financial obligations, what do you think the reaction to a law like that would be, and do you think that would be fair?
Well, it just so happened I happened to be in a similar situation like that when my son's mother, she called herself moving on, getting married to somebody or whatever the case may have been. And when we were ironing out our visitations and everything, she told the lawyer for me to renounce my rights to my child. So my reaction was devastated, because I'm like, why would I want to do that? That's my child. I wasn't one of them ones that just because I have a child, I want to run away and don't want to be a father. I love my son. So for her to even imply that to the lawyer, to ask me if I don't want to pay child support or whatever, to give up all my rights and everything, that was offensive to me. And it just made me even more angrier. And I was the angry black man at the time. But when people put things in your mind like that, especially if you love your child, it's like fighting words, almost like you ready to fight. And she was just plucking my nerves every time with that. I managed to get through with it, with the help of my mom helping me calm down and just think through it and go through it. But it's enough to provoke unnecessary actions. And if my mother wasn't in my ear, I probably would have done something stupid. I don't know. It's just, it causes mental trauma to a certain extent on a man's part, because I felt it, because it just made me angry that she would even attempt to put that out on the table, all because she has a bigger agenda. She wants the other person to be the father, but I'm the father. And it can cause unnecessary issues, especially if somebody messing with your psyche like that.
Samantha?
Okay, so I'm like him. The question again was, what if there was a law that allowed men to
What do you think the
waive their rights?
Yeah, waive their parental, if but only if the man states that he did not want to have a child, and the woman decides to have a child anyway. If it were legal for a man to waive his parental rights, and in addition to that, his financial obligation.
Well, for society as a whole, I think it would be, it's kind of a catch-22. It works for those that genuinely distance yourselves in that situation as a father, but then you're going to have people that, because you know how many times, like y'all said, women walk up to men and say, I want to have your baby. You know how many times I've been told, I want you to have my baby? And people have tried to make that happen. You know, so, okay, so say that person was successful, but now, like, you're just saying something. You don't really want to be a father. And so, but you saying that, I'm believing, like, well, you wanted this. And now you want to waive your right. So it's just a catch-22. It's like it would be a lot of different types of conflict off of something like that, just depending on the different situations, the different people. I mean, it's the same to me as the opposite side with where y'all stand, with us having that choice as you guys are discussing, and not really wanting to be there. That's how I see it. It's like a flip of it.
But can you really hold someone accountable for what they say during sex? Because that's almost like
I'm not talking about during sex. I mean, people have walked up to me and said this before the act even happened.
Okay. Because I was going to say, people say everything during sex. Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But clearly, I think we all adults and understand that happens. I'm talking about literally before the act even occurred. Mm-hmm. I've never had the act with them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Conversations have been said. I am no words or whatever have been said. Even by random strangers. It happens.
Yeah, that's a crazy one. I don't know that I've ever said something like that to some. To somebody.
Normal people don't do that.
Yeah. Well, Rick, I tell you what, I know that you would lead the charge in pushing for something like this to be legal. He's like, hey, if there is not a consensus between the two parties on having a child, and one party decides to go ahead and have it on their own, you say, it's my body, my choice. Well, if it's your body, your choice is also your responsibility. What's your answer to what was asked?
My answer to what was asked is that would be great in a sense. It would say, hey, society does care about what men feel, but then you still can't escape the fact that you'll be banded as a deadbeat dad and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So, and you still have that, right? But I want to touch on our good friend Samantha saying that it's the same. Men say the same thing, right? And so I'm gonna go back to my reference again, because this one is working. And we're gonna refer to the tightrope and the safety net. The difference is, okay, let me say this. I've said that to women. There were women that I thought, man, and I said it, man, I would marry you. We could have kids or whatever. I'm glad, because once upon further investigation, I'm glad they didn't take me up on my offer, right? But the difference is, if I said that, and if a woman bought it, and then they decided, and then I showed my true colors and I was a jerk or whatever, she can abort that baby. But that's not the end of it. She can take that baby and take it to multiple places, even after having the baby, and say, I don't want it. And then they even have places where you can do it anonymously. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like that. So there's that safety net just getting bigger and bigger. There's nothing like that for men. Or she can do what a lot of women do, take the baby to grandma's house and still check while grandma raised that baby. Safety net getting bigger and bigger, and that tightrope getting thinner and thinner for men. So there's nothing in place like that for us. So it is nothing like when a man believes a woman and then she does that. If you believe me and then I turn out to be full of crap, you got all kinds of options. You do not, there's nothing that forces a woman to actually be responsible for a child, except on the rare occasion where a man takes her to court and sues for custody. And even then, she'd have to say, well, I don't want anything to do with my child.
Mm-hmm.
But like a man can say, I don't want anything to do with the child. They say, well, that's fine, but we're gonna take this much out of your check, or you ain't gonna get a job, or you ain't gonna have a license, you're gonna go to jail. Whoop-de-whoop. And with a woman, it's all kinds of support. And
I can say something.
And I don't know how you can expect a man to not be kind of bitter. Because I hear you. I'm going to say this. And this is a real personal one. I'm going to say this. One of the things I wondered as a kid was, if my father hated me so much, why didn't he just stay gone? Because some men don't abandon their children. They stay and beat them up. I mean, I went through it. I got beat up and then told to go to school and cover for the person that beat me up. So my question used to be, dude, why are you don't have to, if you don't want me, you don't ain't got to go through this. You know what I mean? Man. I knew that I had places to go. There were people who were stepping up. He would be fighting for custody and possession of me. After losing custody, my childhood was court. And him, the same dude that was beating me up, fighting for custody. So like it's just, and I don't want him to think I like him or nothing like that. But I don't think it's fair to force somebody into a situation they don't want to be in, because they just might not handle it right. Mm-hmm. And then even if they are nice, man, I think we all know the difference in somebody's eyes when someone likes you, dislikes you, when they're tolerating you or whatever, right? And so like you force a child to even grow up just looking in the eyes and at the face of somebody who hates them. Like, that's how I felt.
You know, and Hanefah, I'm gonna go back to you because I know you want to jump in, but isn't that the argument that they make for why you should have abortion? Because some women may not handle being a mother right. I mean, that's the argument that's made, right? Because when you look at, I think this was the Department of Justice study that said for children under the age of 12, 43% of those kids were killed by their mother. And then for kids, I think 6 years and under, it was 75% were killed from mothers. So the same thing that you were just saying, that some people can't handle it. That's the justification that's used for abortion, but they don't, I guess, they don't see it as a justification for men. You know, some men don't want to be fathers. Some men are not ready to be fathers. Some men just don't want to be fathers. And to force that on them would maybe force them to be in a situation like you were with your dad, where he's physically abusive because you are a constant reminder. You're like a physical reminder of quote unquote a mistake that I didn't want, that was forced upon me. And I don't think that's right. But Hanefah, go ahead, and I know you wanted to chime in.
I was actually trying to just build on something that Ricardo said. That's the other part of the conversation that never gets kind of focused on, where there are cases where the men want the child and they really don't even have a say. The woman can still decide to abort the child, right?
Even when married.
Those situations.
Even when married.
Yes, even when married, absolutely. So that's the other part of the conversation. So there is a lot of leeway for women. Let's just say women are the ones in charge once it comes to reproduction, period. That's it. Right. And you also make another good point, but in order for, wow. Okay. So in order for this to change as well, we actually have to see men as more than just utilities, right? We have to see them as more than just dollar signs, right? So the courts is saying to men, you could be gone, but not your pockets. Your pockets stay, but you can go, right? And in particularly, we see that a lot in our community, right? Where it's like, there is no, the value of the father has been stripped away from the culture. It has been stripped away from the culture for many, many reasons. I'm sure we can go through a ton of the reasons. The history is there, right? And also we're seeing the repercussions of it as well, whether it's a woman leaving or a man abandoning his child. At the end of the day, the end result is that we have a ton of female-led single family homes, right? And I think the longer that happens, as with anything else, because how is culture created? Culture is created through repetition, okay? So something happens enough times and long enough, we begin to normalize it. We become desensitized to it. So now we see men as utilities, not fathers, to the point where when we have a conversation about men, you hear a woman say two things: men provide and protect. And I'm like, but men give so much more than that to children, though. Right? There's a certain essence that men bring to the table that women, even if we wanted to, we cannot manufacture it. We cannot we cannot recreate it. We cannot be both mother and father. Men cannot be both mother and fathers, right? So until we place the value back into fatherhood, this is going to happen. And we see it in the courts, not just the courts, but we also see it in the community. We hear it in the conversations among women. So that men have to be given back their value as fathers. They have to be given back their place as fathers and not just be reduced to utilities and money. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what's happening if we're paying attention. The courts is blatant with it. And then the community and the woman in the community is very blatant with it. I want your seed. I want your seed and I want your money. I don't need your body. You don't need to be present because I was fine without my father. So it's like this whole cyclical thing that's happening amongst our people. And until we begin to change our mindset around that, we are not going to be able or even motivated to change the laws that perpetuate it. Yeah.
I agree with everything you just said. I have female friends who have no use for a man. I mean, even some who, they just, they don't really have use for a man other than providing a child. And
about control.
You said what?
It comes down to being about control. They control the situation.
Yeah.
I don't think that men are even viewed as providers in the eyes of the child, because in many instances, the man's money goes to mom.
Yeah.
So everything is viewed as mom did this. Mom gave me a birthday party. Mom bought me an Xbox. Mom bought me some Jordans. Mom. And then over dad's house, dad working on 40%. He got 2 kids. Mom's got 60% of his income and her income, and you working on 40%. I know dudes who, when they get their kids, they can't do nothing with them because their money over there in the other house.
Right, and that's the thing is like, men don't really receive help or aid from the government and the numbers that women do. It's far easier for a woman to get help, right? But child support is about roughly about 20% is what they charge, somewhere around that ballpark. And it
depends on
I think
per child
income of the mother and the father
is prorated.
And a percentage of that,
yeah. But I think the ballpark is around between 18 and 22%. That's why I just said
Something like that, yeah.
20%. So let's just say 20% on average. And then when you factor in that it costs that, your housing and utilities is about 50%, right? Your living arrangements.
Tipping. Yeah.
Yeah, about 50%. And then you have food and you have a car and you have to get to work and you have to pay gas. You're talking about like 80-90% of your money already gone. You can barely survive. Like if you were married and got divorced and you're being clubbed over the head with child support, it's hard for you to go into a new relationship and be a provider. I mean, as a man, you're almost going to be a financial burden to whatever woman you decide to get with. And that's the unfortunate nature of our child support laws. And I want to pose this to the panel. So when it comes to child support, and I know we're kind of deviating a little bit. I see Natasha said 22 to 26%. That's ridiculous. Almost a third of your income.
That's what I was thinking it was. I was thinking more 30%.
So imagine if you married twice. Imagine if you did it twice.
Man, and they wonder why guys are so afraid to get married. Now we did a show. The last episode we did was on divorce in America, and if marriage was a dying institution, right? Because at the rate we're going, as far as divorces and people choosing not to get married, married couples are going to be a minority in America here shortly, right? It's a very scary proposition to know that that 70 to 80% of the times, and I know, Hanefah, we've been on panels together. People are like, where you get that number? Where you get that number from? But according to the American Sociological Association, women initiate divorce 70% of the time. And there's a sub-agency under the CDC. I can't recall it right now, but they have studies that show 80% of the time. And I wish I had this video. I wanted to show you. There's a YouTuber named Shasha Zed, and he pulled up some TikTok videos, and I may just pull it up. I may just pull it up from YouTube, where an 8th grade teacher was talking to her students, and they said that they wanted to have children. And so she asked the girls, she's like, well, don't you want to be married? They were like, no, why would I want to be married? I can't get any child support if I'm not married. So you're talking about 13 and 14-year-olds thinking like that already. That's a pretty young age to be thinking like that. But they're being programmed by their mothers. Because I had a situation like that where this was back in 92, 93. I was at Norfolk State at the time. And I had a girlfriend out there. I'm not going to call her name. And no, I'm not going to do that. And she was cool. She was cool. So I came back home, came up to DC for spring break. When I went back there, there'd been word that, hey, man, you don't have a girl anymore. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? So when she talked to me, she let me know that she was breaking up with me because I didn't spend enough money on her. I'm like, man, I'm a broke college student. Like, what do you expect? Now, we have fun, we crack jokes, everything. But what had happened was her mother told her that she needed to be with a guy who spends money on her. And this guy, he was a drug dealer. He was a drug dealer. She got caught up with the fast cash. And I told her, I said, because our parents from Sierra Leone, so they got them crazy sayings, right? You say, you'll damn the day and curse the hour that you ever made that decision, and that's what I told her. So years later, I had spoken with her sister, and she said, she's not really doing too well. She would love to hear from you, and, from my understanding, she ended up taking she had like a patch or Norplant in her arm. She took that out, ended up having 2 kids by the guy, gained a lot of weight. He was beating her, so she lost confidence. And we were really good friends. But the fact that she made a foolish decision, and that was guided by her mother because it was all about the score. You know, like you would think like back in the days, maybe in the 70s, 60s or whatever, a mother would say, man, you better get with that guy. This guy is in the military. He going somewhere. This guy's in college. He's going somewhere. Not push your daughter to go deal with a guy on the street over somebody who is legit. I don't know. I'm just rambling. It's just the programming of some of our young girls. And like you said, Hanefah, it's cyclical. And we're going to do a show, hopefully next week. We're going to do a show next week where we talk about the absence of dad in the home and the impact. Because a lot of this hatred that black women have for black men, I believe, is directly a result of their dad not being there. That they didn't have anybody to pattern. You know, your father is your father is like the daughter's first boyfriend, and the mother is like the son's first girlfriend. You know, that's that Freudian philosophy. I forget what he called it. I don't know if he called it an Oedipal. I can't remember exactly the name, but it's who young girls pattern what they look for in a man. And if he's not there, they don't know what to look for. And so then we shouldn't be surprised if we see these young girls going from this guy and it didn't work out. And then she goes to this guy and it didn't work out. Because what they're chasing is that love, attention, and validation that they never got from their father, right? And this isn't to blame all the fathers, because there may be a reason for it, right? The baby may have been a trap baby where he didn't really want to be with, he didn't know the mother, didn't really want to be with the mother, and she decides, I'm going to force you to be with me. And so as a consequence, he is either physically present and emotionally absent and unavailable, or he's physically absent. But either way, it has an adverse impact on the young girl. And that's why you have a lot of black women who they really just dig into education and career, and they want to prove that I don't need it. That hurt. They're like, I didn't need him. And so that hurt that they have with their fathers now transfers to guys that they deal with when they get older in relationships. And so that's something that we're going to have to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of hurt on both sides with women and with men. And men have their issues too with abandonment of their father, but it's just a little different. They process it a little different from the way women process it. And I think that in some cases, a lot of women don't know why they have that anger. But I think that's why it's important for us to begin to have these discussions, you know. But I want to go on to the next topic before we begin to close out. Let's see. Before we go to final statements, give me 1 second. The fact that responsibility for a woman getting pregnant is always placed on the man, and that never really sat right with me, because I feel like unless it's, I'm not even gonna say that word, it's the R word, but you know how YouTube is with the algorithm. So let's just say, and so unless somebody is violated, if it's consensual, then the responsibility of making sure that you have protection against diseases or unwanted pregnancy falls on both parties, not just one individual. Because oftentimes you hear people saying that, well, a man should have known better, or he shouldn't have put his thing. He should have thought about that before he put his thing. But these same women who were saying that would be offended when your pro-life people tell you, well, if you didn't want the baby, you should have closed your legs. Because that's the same type of argument. Is it not, Hanefah? Well,
I'm sorry, Abraham. What's the question exactly?
No, I'm saying it's the same argument, saying that a man, if he didn't want a child, then he shouldn't have slept with this woman. It's the same argument that pro-lifers make to women when they get pregnant, when they say, well, if you didn't want to have a child, close your legs. Why is one argument valid and the other one isn't? They're two are the same.
Because it's still rooted in the same biasness. Anything that has to do with the child, whether the child is in the womb or the child is outside of the womb, there's a biasness as far as mothers. Mm-hmm. Like the biasness of the assumption that that women are automatically a better parents simply because they're women. That is an assumption, automatically. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we have a lot of biases as far as how we perceive the man and the woman in the situation. So that's still rooted right back into that, in my opinion, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna go around. Marlon, you next, Samantha, and then Rick on this issue, or what? And then we're gonna do a final round with your final thoughts. Marlon, you have anything on this? What do you have?
Pretty much what Hanefah said. It all falls, women are assumed, that they can, the perception is that the woman is able to take care of the child and make all the right decisions for a child. And the man is just on the sideline. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Samantha?
They're still on the close your legs or use a condom. The environments I'm in, I'm hearing both. So it just could be from my environment and, my standpoint from that. I could see where you wouldn't and there would be a bias, but again, I'm an educator, and when people end up pregnant or girls end up pregnant, they're shocked. I'm like, well, you didn't lay by yourself, so what do you expect to happen? That's one of the things that come of that. So now you got to figure out what you're going to do. That's just how it happens.
Right.
Abraham?
Yes.
Abraham,
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I will say though, and Samantha, being an educator, one of the things that I will say though is that a lot of the burden do fall on the if it's let's say teen pregnancy, it falls on the girl and the woman oftentimes, right? Mm-hmm. So they will be required to take certain classes, and I'm just like, where are the classes for the teen dads? Why don't we hear anything about teen dads? So a lot of it so that's what I'm saying. There's on both sides you can find. If it depends on the narrative you want to push, right? Mm. And I'm about not leaning heavily on one side, because that just creates a further division between us. Mm. I think that both sides can find something to run with. It depends on the narrative they want to push. For me, what I'm looking for is reconciliation. I'm looking for harmony. I'm looking for balance between our men and our women. Mm. So I am willing to look at it in a fair way. Yes, on this end, you could see where there's some biasness against the men. But I want us to be very clear that because we live in a male-dominated society, there are other factors that are at play that are stacked against the woman automatically. So I'm thinking about all the teen mom programs that are around. And I'm often asking, okay, is it that? And by the way, saying this might be even a part of the agenda to push the man out the picture as well. That might be a part of it too, because it might be the idea of why should we accommodate them? They don't matter no way. Right. That could be a part of it too. But I've always asked the question, why is everything focused on the girl, on the woman? There's all of these resources for the woman, all of these things. And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm just maybe that can also be a part of what I see happening, which is this attempt to mock the father absent. So why am I giving you resources, right? All I need is your resources, which is your money. You don't need these programs. You don't need none of those things. That could be a part of it, but that's an observation that I've made years ago, that a lot of things are given to women, or a lot of the burden is placed on the I'm going to say girls here because I'm talking about teen moms, and the teen dads kind of is just like not in the picture. But again, it can still be all connected to what we were talking about earlier as well.
Rick.
All right. Well, I really, really don't like when I hear that we live in a male-dominated society, because it's pretty much proven untrue. It's like a top 5% of men who are pulling strings, and I'm being generous when I say 5%, because it's probably like 0.5%. And the rest of us are not pulling any shots. And then if you want to look at on a local level, everywhere, you know, pretty much women can outvote us anytime they want. They outnumber us, and then, you know, I'm not going to, not half of us, but a lot of us, even though we're already outnumbered by the women, a lot of us are in jail and been in jail and don't have voting rights, right? So, you know, when you say we live in a male-dominated society, most of the men that are affected by that statement ain't dominating anything. We ain't dominating anything. So I really have a hard time understanding how a woman can say that and believe it, because because if you even ask the child, if you ask children, I'm sure they'll tell you it don't look like men running nothing. But you know, but we get painted as running from responsibility. Also, say something that people would probably be shocked to hear me say, but I do agree that that at least initially, we should assume that the child needs the mother more than the father, because they do. Because I mean, like, they should. I mean, if all things are we being fair, I can't breastfeed a child. So there's I'm not saying that every woman does, but I can't.
Maybe in 10 years you may be able to. All the things that they're working on and trying to give artificial wombs. Hey, don't hold your breath. 10 years you might be able to breastfeed.
I'm hoping these green drinks and everything I have to keep on this side of being able to feed the child. But so I agree that the children need their mothers, but we really nowadays paint a real sad case for why anybody would want to be a man. I mean, and a little boy, you know, when I was a kid, I looked at TV and I wanted to be powerful. So, you know, we had like Tarzan, we had like all these examples of men being powerful. Superman, and they were good. Those people were good to the women. They were protecting the women. Even the Incredible Hulk, like he would bust out of burning buildings carrying a woman. You know, like, they were good to women. But now the women superheroes but the women superheroes are just beating the crap out of men all day long. Mom's beating the crap out of dad. Dad's got low self-esteem. Dad got to hang his head low, can't say nothing in the house. It just don't look good. I can't see why a little boy would be like, I want to grow up and be a man too. It's kind of tough. So I don't even know if I'm on topic. I probably never was on topic.
Yeah, you good.
I was hearing some stuff and I was just like, man, it just don't look good. But I will say that the babies do need their moms. Men, the topic of men being more selective with their choices. You hear men told that, but you don't hear women saying, hey, if you didn't want to raise this child alone, you should have chosen more wisely. You don't hear that, and there's no threat of that. And And also, hey,
but that's what I'm saying. What I was talking about. In some cases, they don't know how to make the right choices, right? So they're figuring out. They're like figuring it out as they go along. You see what I'm saying?
They got a safety net, so they can comfortably do that. They got all kinds of safety nets, and we got none. We make the wrong choice. It's, that's it.
Yeah.
They got all kinds of safety nets, man. And why can't we, why can't we just say, hey, all children are blessings. So, hey, you can have this whole blessing all to yourself. Bless you. Wow. Oh, that's what they try to tell men. When men like, oh, man, I didn't want to do this. And they say, hey, listen, all children are blessings. And you should consider yourself fortunate. And even though you don't want this child, congratulations. You should be grateful.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But we can't do that, man. We can't.
Well,
hey,
we're gonna get ready to close out. It was a good panel. I enjoyed the discussion. This topic is it can be controversial, and I wanted to have a discussion around the controversy without stepping on any of the landmines, and hopefully we did a good job of doing that tonight. I'm going to begin with Hanefah and then followed by Marlon, Samantha, Rick, to just give your final thoughts. Hanefah.
Okay, so my final thoughts, I'm just going to address Rico real quick. Rico the plug real quick. So, so two things. I know it doesn't matter whether it's 5 men or 3 men making the decisions are still male dominated. So if you have an agency, right, and let's say you have an agency and it's 100 men and 100 women and only 5 men and no woman, or my 5 men and 1 woman in the room making those important decisions, they are still male dominated decisions. Now, in the Black community, it looks a little different. And if you're talking about Black men, when you say that, then maybe that's another conversation. But when I say male dominated, I'm saying like a lot of the decisions that are made in this country specifically, they're male dominated. Like, I mean, I don't really, anyway, so that's that. And then also too, no, I'm gonna push back on you, Rico the plug. The mothers are not more important than men, than fathers, simply because they breastfeed. Because you know how much, right now, there is a formula shortage. Women are losing their minds right now. Do you know how many women do not breastfeed? So now when we take that off the table, then tell me another reason why a mother is more important than a father. And that's the issue, is that we've talked and we've pushed that for so long, that women, their sole responsibility is to be caretakers of children, right? To the point where now all of us have internalized this idea that, the children need mothers more. And as a woman and as a mother of boys, I am a boy mom, I beg to differ. I do not believe that. And I think that there are studies out there that have debunked that, because even the argument was, well, we carry them, so we bond with them while they're in the womb. You know what I'm saying? And there are studies out there that's showing that no, there are ways for fathers to bond with their children in the womb as well. So it's just a narrative. It's just something that we've internalized. But I would dare say that it's not necessarily true. Now, children need women. They need their mothers for particular things that fathers cannot give them. And they need their fathers for specific things that their mothers cannot give them. I will not dare say one is more important than the other. I think they are equally important. And most women only feed in between 0 to 2 years. So you're telling me 2 years out of 18 years of a child's life, because a woman and I breastfeed my son, he just turned 3. Right before he turned 3, I weaned him off the breast. You're trying to tell me that because I breastfed him for 2.5 years, that somehow my role in his life is more important than his father? Absolutely not. That's only 2 years out of 18. But anyway, my closing remarks.
No, it was fantastic. It was great.
Yeah, I would love to come back. But my closing remarks on this is, until the society is not going to be ideal. It's not. We have to work with what's given to us until we can change it. right? So we have to work within the confines of it. We have to figure out how to navigate what already exists, whatever this reality is. So for men, and I have boys, and I think about this, my oldest is 10. What would I say to him when he decides to start dating and so forth, right? The reality is this: right now, currently, you plant your seed in soil. You, once it's planted, you are not the gardener after that. She is. She decides what happens going forward. So you need to be very careful in how you select whether she decides to keep the child or abort that child, whether she decides after she give birth she don't want to be with you anymore and now she's going to put you on child support. There's a number of results. So you need to be very careful in your selective process and perhaps not try to impregnate someone that you are not married to. And if it does happen, you know that you have a responsibility. So you go into the sex act knowing that if the outcome is a child, I have to be responsible for this child. At least that's what I'm going to teach my boys until we could change some of these things. But right now, as it stands, it's best to teach them how to navigate it properly. That's it.
Good comments. Good comments. Marlon.
Yeah, that's pretty much how my mom raised me. My mom kind of raised me to be responsible, be selective, like who you with. And she always told me, if you lay down with a dog, you're going to come up with fleas. So the thing is, whatever comes your way, just be responsible and, just stay the course. It's nothing wrong with making mistakes, but as a man, you just got to own up to it. I know it's not fair all the time when it comes to, a man and a woman with different things. And unfortunately, I wasn't married at the time when I had my child, but I stayed here for him, and I did my part, and I don't regret not one bit of it. I just regret the way it happened and all the other situations that transpired between his mother and I, but that's behind me now. And I move forward. But for women, I don't see a change right now. I think right now it's always in favor of the woman, but it's even more treacherous now, that I would tell my son, you definitely have to be careful. I mean, everybody has to be careful, but going into this time now is even more treacherous now. But I don't know how we reconcile. I guess laws have to be changed. In some instances, I've heard that it's getting better where men can get their sons, depending on where you're at. It's not that way everywhere you go. But laws have to be changed. And we just have to be more focused on having the father be more, for mothers to be more, have the father be more inclusive, and other than that, that's just it.
Yeah. Okay. Tomato.
All right, so I was technically, I guess, considered as statistics ways a teenage mom. I got pregnant at 19. 2 months later, I turned 20. So I was 20 when I had my child. But I went into that act anytime, having that conversation about whether or not I was on birth control, whether or not a condom was going to be used, and knowing that if it wasn't, that was something that could happen. And so as a mother and knowing what the effects were after that and getting pregnant that young, that's the conversation, as Hanefah has said, that I have with my sons. And so when it comes to sex, I tell them, don't trust what that girl says. No matter what she says, if you decide that you're going to do that, you wear a condom. And I am a Christian, so no, I don't want you to have sex before you get married. But should you get curious, should you fall into the flesh and do all of that, then know that pregnancy can come from it. So you need to do everything in your power to make sure that either you wearing that condom, there is a conversation, she should be on birth control, in my opinion. And so that's just where I stand for as that part is concerned. I agree with Hanefah with the father is not more, the mother is not more important. And I use that for my own life, where while I wasn't as close with my father in the beginning, he became a major part of my life once I became pregnant. And I could see how like having him there and even still going back as an adult and thinking about the times that the interactions and the things that he had in place for me and things of that sort, they did kind of outweigh some of the things that my mother also provided for me. You know, in hindsight, realizing things when you're a little more reflective, when you're more mature. And so even with my youngest son, his whole first year of his life, like I was crying because I was like, oh, my child don't like me, because he felt more comfort and secureness in his father's like arms than he did in mine, because he was stronger and he was that kid that needed to be swaddled and needed to be held tight for whatever reasons. And that worked for him. Now, once he was more confident in the world and environment, then he became latched to me and has been since that time. But I could see how his dad was very significant and how I would have been miserable had he not been present that whole first year of his life. And so I've been thinking through the whole discussion, like with the child support laws at the beginning when we were talking about that, I'm posing more of a question than a thought, well, a little both, that I do agree that they are more biased towards women, but I'm curious to see, like, when you look at the data for child support and who's placed on it, when it comes to men, which men are there? Are there more of our Black men that have been forced into certain situations that are pretty much leaving them in a worse off situation had they had the choice of deciding like how much to provide and all that type of stuff? And I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. However, if that is the case, then is the system set up to keep us in the situation that we are as Black people, where we never can really get out of like the poverty and the battles between genders and all of that type of stuff?
You know, and generally when you make your final thoughts, I don't like to interject, but you may have a point there. Especially when it comes to criminalizing falling into debt for child support. That's the most bizarre thing I think I've ever heard of, right? If you fall behind in child support for $5,000, it's a misdemeanor. And if you fall behind $10,000, it becomes a felony. You lose your license, your passport. It becomes difficult to get a job. And while you're in jail, your child support continues to accrue. And I know that Obama had signed an executive order because it had gotten so bad that, you know, people were falling behind $40,000 and $50,000 in debt just, you know, because it accrued while they were in jail. But some states are not even honoring the executive order. Obama's not in office now, so they feel like they don't have to honor that executive order. And it's really ridiculous. There was a guy in Texas who his job fumbled the paperwork and didn't submit child support payments for a while. And, you know, the guy had gotten arrested, but he had the money and he was paid them up front. They say, thank you, but you still have to do 6 months in jail. Now that's crazy. This is America. A debtor's prison is supposed to be illegal. We did away with that, almost 100 years ago. And here we are sending people to prison. I mean, people to jail, ruining their lives just for falling behind on a debt that's no business of the government. This is between a man, between a father and a mother. And one more thing before I go on to Rick. People forget the guy, Walter Scott, in South Carolina. You remember the old guy who jumped out of his car and he ran and he got shot in the back? Yeah. Well, people don't realize that the reason why he got out the car, for as old and as big as he was and tried to run, was because he had lost his job 4 times for falling behind in child support, going to jail. And this time he had a really good job. And for some reason, he thought he could just get up and just outrun the cop because he didn't want to go to jail because he would lose his job. And instead of going to jail, the guy actually shot him and the cop shot him in the back and then tried to throw a knife on him. But it was because of child support. And the story goes that the mother called into child support enforcement. She was angry. She's using him as a pit bull because Walter Scott had decided to to marry the girlfriend. He never married her, but he decided to marry this other woman. And when they interviewed his daughter, she said, well, anytime we needed something, our father was always around and he always provided. Well, isn't that the most important thing? Like, why are you sending good people to jail because they're falling behind on a debt that's between the father and the mother? And that's all I'm saying. It'll just be rhetorical. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Before he speak, I want to comment on that. I'm from South Carolina.
Go ahead.
I'm from South Carolina. My father has a daughter ahead of me by a few months or almost a year. He missed one payment, same reason, one payment, because he got a job. Somehow the paperwork didn't get done correctly. They put him in jail. I can't remember if it was just overnight or for the weekend, but for one payment, and he told them, I have the money. I can give it to you right now. He still went to jail for that one payment that he had already been making payments for several years. She was like 12 or something when this happened. So that's what I'm saying.
It's
Something's
crazy.
not right.
No, it's not right. And changes definitely need to be made. Rick.
Man. Well, I'm just going to go. I got to go all the way back to Hanefah. Hanefah, I said initially, and then I know you said that all mothers don't breastfeed their children, but I can tell you this, ain't no father out here that breastfeed his children. So I'm saying is initially, and I'm not saying that mothers are more important than fathers. I think that there are times when mothers are more important, just like times when fathers are more important. But I think initially, the mother is supremely important for a child. There are going to be some outside circumstances. I know that when my son, my first time baby, was born, for the first couple of weeks, he was a little more attached to me than his mom. But I was real calm because I knew that was going to change. I knew it was going to change, and it did. And then you said about mother bonding with the child while in the womb, and you said that the fathers can. Well, that's another one-sided thing, because for the mother to bond with the child, all it requires is for her to bond with the child. For the father to bond with the child, though, he got to be pretty darn close with the mother. And so if you were like me and not quite happy with the situation, it's a little difficult for me to bond with my son in the womb. That's a real big internal conflict. Because you know, in that situation, the mom's a little more happy than me and the baby. 'Cause I'm not, you know, I mean, like right now, I don't like the fact that I gotta call her phone to, you know, I don't like that. I'm like, man, I wish the little joker was talking.
Yeah.
So I can call him, you know, direct, but I can't do that. So there's the bias. And you talked about men running the world. Like, I get it. I agree that there are some big dogs sitting on high running the world, but that's not most of us, and it doesn't transpire to like there's no tangibles for that. Like, men run the world, so laws aren't in our favor. Men run the world, but most of us still die in war. Men run the world, but we still don't have rights in our own houses. So, you know, you keep saying men run the world, and it's like you gotta be, you know, it's not life doesn't reflect that for us on the daily. Men run the world doesn't look like, all right, I work.
Well, hold on, Rick. We're gonna have to argue that another time, unless this is part of your closing. Are you?
Well, it does. It ties right into the whole, you know, laws and stuff not being fair.
I didn't mean,
single.
No. I said I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just trying to get your closing thoughts. Do you hear me?
Yeah. But I don't want to not make this point because
Go ahead.
But a single woman can walk into a room full of men, and everything that the men do in that room from there on out has to change. It has to change. And that doesn't look like dominance to me. It doesn't matter if it's the job site or the barbershop. A single woman can walk in the room and everything the men do in the room has to change. And it's not the case if a single man walks in the room with a room full of women. So, and that's what we see over and over in life. And that's what we see with these laws and all that stuff. And then people try to fall back on, well, we live in a male-dominated society. Men shouldn't have a say. All this stuff it just paints a very unfair picture.
Oh, I agree with a lot of what you just said. I'm going to keep my final thoughts short, brief. I thought it was a good panel, Hanefah. I agree with you that in order for things to change, just as women in the past have asked for men to come and support the women's movement and gender equality and rights for women, I think we're going to need to see that same effort from women, help standing side by side with men fighting inequities in family courts, fighting inequities when it comes to child support, fighting inequity when it comes to trap babies and Spurgling and, sperm jacking and all these things that should be legal. There's no reason why if a man takes off his condom without the woman knowing, he can go to jail. But if a woman steals his sperm, steals his condom, like in the Drake situation, or pokes holes, nothing happens, and he's still responsible for child support. There has to be some balance. So yes, there is significant bias in when it comes to reproductive rights and when it comes to family law, family courts. And I agree 100% that it's going to take an effort from both parties, because as men, we can't do this by ourselves. But I appreciate conversations like this. I want you all to stand by after we sign off, just for a few minutes, or just do a little wrap up behind the scenes. To all of you who are in the audience, be sure to click that like button and subscribe. And remember to always think for yourself, keep an open mind, and stay lit. AK on fire.